Tingles with Lilac. Hello, my tinglings. Well, I know it's been a long time coming, and people have been wanting to know what my love story with my love is, so I wanted to share that today because it is our 6-year anniversary today. It's the day we were married. So we'll get into that. So let's start at the beginning. So if you've watched my other ramble video about my ex, that's where we'll start. I was married to my ex at the time. Well, anyway, so when I was married to my ex, he ran a Sonic speedrunning website called the Sonic Center. And actually, if you go on there, I'm known as Flyby. You can actually check out my scores. But anyway, so I got involved in the community there. I didn't really speedrun at all. If you check out my scores, you'll see that's true. I am really not, well, I didn't submit very much at all, and I was really bad. But anyway, I had fun. And used to just talk to a lot of the people who were in the community, and it was just a fun place to be. And so that's where I actually met Mark, who is my son, who is in Germany right now with his fiancée. I think I kind of spoke about that in that story. Anyway, I'll talk about that quickly here as well. I also talked about it in my vinegar tasting video. Anyway, unboxing maybe. So yeah, we met in Sonic Center as well, and he was having a rough time and was really sad, and I saw that and I just felt a strong connection to him and really wanted to help him, and just really started to love him actually. And when I told him I loved him, it was the first person who had ever told him that he was loved in his life. And so and I just started to feel these maternal feelings towards him. And so we developed a mother-son relationship. And then eventually, anyway, we came to today where he lives with me. But anyway, I'll get into that. That's all intertwined. So in 2010, so that happened in 2008 was when I met Mark. In 2010, I was finally coming down so Mark is from Australia. He lived in Sydney. And so I was finally coming down and going to be able to meet him in person. And so I was really excited about that. So I came down, and when I was down here, I had just split up. So it was about a year after me and my ex split up. That's when I was coming down to Australia. But I was still active in Sonic Center. My ex wasn't really that active in it. Anyway, so while I was down there, I then started talking a bit to my love, because we were on the same time zone, and so he was around a lot when I was actually around. Because a lot of time, we'd spoken before, I knew him a little bit, and we'd talked a few times, but not a lot. And so when I came down in 2010, it was the big floods that were, if you heard about the floods in Australia in 2010, 2011, I was here during that time, not in a flooding area. But so we got lots of rain in Sydney, and they were amazing, amazing rainstorms, and it was warm outside, and I hadn't been in warm rain for a really long time, and so I was just running outside and dancing in the rain and just loving it. And Mark wasn't joining me, but he was talking about me in the chat room, saying that I had just run outside and was dancing in the rain. And so when he heard about this, then my love was kind of like made him a little more interested in me, I think, because he thought that was a cool thing. And so it was also during that time that I was doing a lot of deconstructing of my previous relationship, because I was having difficulties, so it actually happened because I had some Jehovah's Witnesses knock on my door, and I answered the door, and then I was reading things about Jehovah's Witnesses after that, because I was kind of like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to them, or, whatever about what I think about what they think. And then I was reading about, these systems of control and kind of the emotional type abuses and controls that happen in there. So I wasn't really thinking about that, but it got me thinking about, there's just something that twigged in my brain at that point, and it really made me think about my previous relationship and how I felt like I had been emotionally abused. And I was reading all these quizzes, and they basically said, if your gut feel tells you that you are, then you are, type thing, because a lot of it can be very subtle. And I was having a really hard time pulling up examples and that sort of thing. And yeah. And I was really upset at the time because my sister, I felt like, blamed me for my divorce, first of all, that because of my relationship with Mark, that was why we had had a divorce, was because I invested a lot of time in trying to help this, boy across the world who was going through a horrendous time, and who, I definitely had an influence there on his life, which he's told me. But anyway, and so I really wanted to show her that that wasn't the case, and that she was being judgmental about my relationship previously, because basically in my relationship with me and my ex, he didn't really spend any time with me, he didn't try to do things with me, we didn't actually spend a lot of time together, and he wasn't really there as a partner. And so the time that I spent on Mark was more so me just filling the space that was in my life, because this other person just wasn't really doing their role, type thing. And so I felt like I had, space and room in my life to take on a relationship like that. Anyway, so I ended up writing out all these things that had happened in my previous relationship, just detailing, and it was even and this just was the first year. We were married 4 years, I think. But I was just going through the first year, and but it really did come from a place of feeling like I wanted to justify myself to her. And so I wrote it, but then I also put it up on my blog, because I kept a blog at the time. And so I put that up on my blog, and so apparently my love had been reading my blog, which I had linked it at some point, like a few months, like maybe 6 months before, but I hadn't linked it recently. And so after I wrote that, he really wanted to talk to me and tell me that he thought I was a special person and that I deserved to be happy in my life, and that I was just a unique person and somebody who didn't deserve the things that happened to me before. And it was a really life-changing moment for me, that conversation that we had. He was just... I consider myself somebody who can occasionally, not all the time, but sometimes I feel like I can really see a person and tell them things that I see in them that they might not see in themselves. And so being somebody who's done that with people, it was really special because it was the first time that someone had actually done that for me, and I felt like he could see into me and see something that I hadn't necessarily seen in myself. And so I really appreciated that night and that conversation that we had. This was typing online. But, and so that to me was just a life-changing moment. And we were friends, and that was kind of that. But after that moment, we kind of both, I think, sensed, that we had connected. And so we wanted to keep connecting. And so we started talking a lot more. And we were talking a lot. And so we were just talking. And in my previous relationship, I had, I'm a very, well, anyway, you guys know eyebrows, I don't shape my legs. Anyway, I did then, but then I'm very atypical. I have my own way of doing things. And so in my first relationship, I had been very forward. I didn't really care about typical gender roles. Not that I still do, but I felt like it was really important for me personally that in my next relationship, I let the other person do more instigating. And to me, I don't think it really mattered that I was a female. It was because of my prior relationship experience. And it was just important to me to have that, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't pushing anything along. And so we had conversations, and he had these allusions to, like, that he was going to tell me he loved me at some point. He said, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but he had this thing about 3/4, that he was 3/4 of the way. But he didn't really say that it meant that he loved me, like 3/4 love me. It was 3/4 something, but I knew that it meant about loving me. And anyway, so I was in Australia until the 15th of January, and then I was sobbing at the airport when I had to say goodbye to Mark, because I thought it was going to be a long time till I had to come back. And at the airport, on the airplane back, I decided I couldn't wait a long time. And so I decided that I was going to figure out whatever I needed to do, that, like, I wanted to try within a year, if I could, to try and move back to Australia. My initial plan was to try to become a nurse, because they had a thing at the time for getting nurses into the country. So you could take this year-long nursing program. And then, anyway, so that was my plan at the time, my first plan. Anyway, but so I had a trip to Hawaii right afterwards, which I did with my family, with my dad and my sister and her kids and her husband. And while I was in Hawaii, I was like taking these pictures of myself and sending them to my love. And my love was he was on a road trip through Australia, and they had to end up turning back and got back home. And it was when he got back home that we started talking, even more. And I was still in Australia. No. And then I got back from Hawaii, and I was, anyway, back in Utah. And it was the 27th of January. And that's when he said, there will be no precursors tonight. And that's when he told me that he loved me for the first time. And I told him I loved him too. And that's when we became boyfriend and girlfriend. And it was a good day. And then February 2nd, the great sadness happened. So if you've seen if you saw my Keeping It Real video, you'll know that my husband has had a treacherous past, which he didn't quite realize at the time. And so he felt really unstable. So he broke up with me because he felt like he couldn't do that right then. And understanding what I understand now, I think it's because of the instability that it was going to cause in his family, which did happen when we got together. And so there was kind of these two competing things. And when he broke up with me, and I said, the way he broke up with me, it wasn't really permanent. It was kind of that I said I was going to be coming. So the thing at that point was that I was going to be coming at the end of the year or the following January, I think. So I was going to be, doing this thing for a year and then coming over. So his thing was, okay, well, maybe we can get together, when you come down. And I knew kind of how emotions and relationships work, and I felt, that we had something special, but I was just like, well, I was like, well, I hope you'll come for me, because I might need some convincing at that point to kind of open myself back up to you, instead of just, continuing along. So I was kind of begging him to please come and find me, because I really thought, that we were sharing something special at that point. So then a couple days later, he was thinking, about things and his university and all that, and that anything that he was worried about, that it wasn't as important to him as having a relationship with me was. And so we got back together, because that's what we both really wanted to do. And so, yeah, so I think that was February 5th that we got back together. We called it the Great Sadness. It was only 3 days, but it really did feel like a long time. Which is probably because, so then we were dating online, via Skype and that sort of thing. Still didn't meet in person, because we didn't meet in person when I was in Australia. So, it wasn't until mid-February that I actually saw a picture of his face without sunglasses on. So that was funny. I was in love with him, and I knew that. I hadn't even seen his face. But once I saw his face, I liked what I saw. But, it was, because it was into February. Well, we had already basically planned that we were going to get married at the end of the year. So it was all kind of, we were planning to be together. We already knew we wanted to be together. And this was actually before we'd first Skyped as well. And the first time we Skyped, my first impression of my love that came back to me was just, what a genuine person he is. That, just that he was everything that I thought he would be, and just that I could tell by looking at him that he was just so genuine. And he also has a rubber face, which means he has like so many facial expressions, which when I was really young and a teenager, the thing I used to be attracted to most, and I mean it probably doesn't change, but was like just facial expressions. And so I was like, oh my god, you know, he has this, and it wasn't, I didn't even really know. So I kind of lucked out on that one, but yeah, he's amazing. So that was the 17th of February. 17th? Anyway, I don't know. It was the middle of February. So, plans still end of the year. Gonna go. That's when we're gonna do it. Then I told him he should watch The Family Man. This was in March. I think like 14th or 15th of March. So I had seen The Family Man with my sister when I was like 13. And in the movie, if you've seen it, it's kind of about what happens when they separate for a bit of time and then they don't end up getting back together. And then he gets a glimpse of if they actually stayed together at that time instead of just having, it was just going to be a long distance relationship, but they ended up breaking up. And so he gets a glimpse into what his life would be like if they were together. And so I was watching, so he was watching it on his TV, and then I was just watching him on Skype, watching the movie, but I knew it well enough that I knew what was going on. So I couldn't actually see the movie at all. But just, it resonated with me, and it resonated with him as well. And so, both introverts, so it took us a couple of days, but we were just thinking about it, and I just kept coming back to that. I was like, I don't want to wait till the end of the year to be together. Like, that's too far away. I want to be together now. I don't want to regret not having this time together. And so, we didn't. On the 17th of March, I got a ticket to Australia. I got a visa, a working holiday visa to Australia. And then I set things in motion, put in notice at my job, put in notice at my house, told my sister and my mom. My mom ended up flying out so she could help me clear things out and, you know, see me before I went over. Told my dad, too. And then on the 5th of April, I got on an airplane and came to marry my love. On the 7th of April, I got here to Adelaide. It's a long flight. No, but because of the time difference, it does make you skip a day. And so Adelaide Airport is a very, very special place to both of us because it's the first place that we got to see each other in person. We used to do this thing on Skype where we would look into the camera and then we would take turns so one of us would look into the camera and then one of us would be looking into the eyes so we could feel like we were looking into each other's eyes, and then we would switch so the other person could feel like we were looking into each other's eyes. And so that was one of like the first things when we were together in person. We're just like, oh, we can look into each other's eyes. It's so good. So I thought he was going to be a little more prepared on what we were doing from there, you know, like finding an apartment, that sort of thing. He had a hotel room for me to stay in, so that was good. So so we spent our first week in Adelaide, just going all around Adelaide. To me, Adelaide is I was already in love, but it's where I got to really, really fall in love with my love. And so it's a really special place to me. You'll probably hear me speak very fondly of Adelaide. And it's, yeah, because it's part of that history for me. And I think it's an amazing place anyway. But I think that just, cherry on top. I remember the first night he leans it. We're on this bridge. Yeah, it's this really romantic moment. We're on this bridge over the Torrens. He leans into me and he says, "Did you know that I own all 25 seasons of Matlock?" And I was like, "No, I didn't know that." I was so young and innocent then. His mom, one of her favorite lines is, "You come from a long line of trolls," but so he wasn't serious. There aren't 25 seasons of Matlock and he doesn't own them. But anyway, it took me a little while to pick up on when he is trolling, but now I think I'm even better than his mom or sister at picking it up. They're sometimes a little gullible because they are trolls too. I mean, I'm a troll now too. Comes with the territory. So that was the first week we were together. We got slushies and we ate at Buskers, which no longer exists. And the hot pot train is closed as well. It changed management, it got a little weird after that, but that used to be one of our favorite special restaurants. Anyway, so we had planned to get married, pretty much straight away. So, but we hadn't decided, so in Australia, you had a 30-day wait period. Yeah, you had a 30-day wait period. And so we wanted to get married sooner than that. We just wanted to get married straight away. So we were looking around, and I remember for some reason the Cook Islands. We went crazy over the Cook Islands because I think we thought it was immediate, and we read more and it was still 3-day wait period, which is what it was in New Zealand. Anyway, so we ended up and we said, okay, we'll go to New Zealand. So we went to New Zealand and we got married there. We got our documentation in, and then we ended up getting married on April 26th, which is why this video is out today. So we went into the registration office and we didn't have any witnesses, and we needed to have witnesses. So we asked to marry women in the office if they would be our witnesses. And so they were. And I don't remember a lot about the ceremony. The first thing I remember, though, was right after we had been married, the first thing that Andrew said to me when we were married was, "Have you seen the Mutual Community ad?" And apparently there was something really touching and it was a good ad or something. But my mom, just the first thing he says to me is, "Have you seen the Mutual Community ad?" So it was really funny. But yeah, we loved New Zealand. We had so much fun. We stayed in this hotel and had amazing breakfast, and we just spent so much time just eating these breakfasts. And then we went to this grocery store, which was basically a Woolworths, but it was called Countdown. And we just got chocolate cake and chocolate milk and chocolate and biscuits, and it was funny. It's also when I left the church, so we got wine, and I had some iced tea as well, but yeah, we had a lot of fun. And yeah, so that was kind of our honeymoon and everything like that. I loved eloping. I think it was great. I felt really weird the first time when I got married being the center of attention, that everyone was there for me. It was really overwhelming for me because I'm a very one-on-one, very individual person. And so just having everybody there at once, it was really overwhelming. And so I didn't want, especially lots of people, to pay lots of money to either go to the US or to come to Australia for the wedding. So, eloping, anyway, I think eloping was great. It was spectacular. Big fan. We didn't get really many gifts from people because we didn't even send out an announcement, but yeah, I would prefer it any day. But yeah, so I ended up moving in with Andrew, with my love's parents, because we didn't have a place to live. So that was an interesting experience because, I've, uncovered a bit in the time since. So, yeah. And that's what I said in my other video. It's been the same all the way through. We've had a lot of hard times. It was really hard for me to find a job at first because of my visa status. Nobody wanted to hire me, even though I had come over from I was an assistant manager in a call center, so you think even just a regular call center position that I would be able to get, but I couldn't get hired until I had my other visa. And then that's where I got the job I have now. But yeah, so we got really, because I came over, because I sold my car when I came over. So we had a bit of money saved to start out with. And then my dad lent me some money, which he ended up giving me. Thank you, Dad. I don't know if he's watching this. But anyway, and so we had some money, but it was, really tough. Probably, I have a lot of empathy for people who are unemployed, because for me, I was in that situation temporarily, but it felt so awful, and it was really easy to be very down in that situation. And so, yeah, it was a really tough time. But even though my love's had his mental illness all, throughout, it's been kind of progressing, and he didn't, it kind of manifested when he left his family home, which is when we got together. And so, bit of shock and that sort of thing. So all the life circumstances, I wouldn't say everything there has ever been perfect or anything like that, but we've just always been in love. Not just in love, but we've always been a good match. We just fit together. We talk to each other about everything. We do a lot of things together. We just love each other, and yeah, but as I said, it's not just love, it's compatibility as well. We're very, very compatible, and I just feel so lucky to have somebody like that in my life. He's an amazing, amazing person, and I just couldn't imagine my life without him. I actually, this is, really relevant. Earlier this week, I had a little bit of a scare because I was at work and then I was meant to go to uni, but then I didn't actually have anything on. So I thought, I'll call him and see if he wants to pick me up and I can come home. But then he didn't answer the phone, which usually he always answers the phone pretty much straight away. And then I checked on this little GPS tracking app that I have, and it showed that, he was on O'Connell Street, which is not where we live. And so I was like, oh no, like, has something happened to him? What's going on here? And so I just was walking. I was like, I can't stop. I can't take a bus. I just kept calling him and calling him and calling him. And then I was just walking to where this GPS said he was. And then I really started freaking out a bit. Like, I was crying on the street just thinking that he'd been in a car accident, that maybe he was gone and I was never going to see him again. It's funny, when I said goodbye to him that morning, I was in a little bit of a rush, because he drops me off at work, and then so I was there, and he was trying to give me like a longer kiss. I was like, no longer kiss, short kiss, and so he had like this short kiss. But I was happy we hadn't fought on the way there. But I was like, oh, I don't want it. Like, I should have given him a long kiss. I don't know, one of those things. Even though we did have a long kiss anyway, because we, always do. But anyway, so yeah, I was just so relieved when he called me and I heard his voice. I just burst into tears as soon as I heard his voice, and I was just like, I was so worried. And yeah, so it was, yeah, we've had some hard times, but I mean, we've had times that, like, where he figured out that he might not want kids, and anyway, so he thought he needed to break up with me because I had wanted kids. Anyway, had a lot of changes happen in my life since I left the church, especially. And so, anyway, at this point, we both don't want kids, so imagine on that. But I just knew that, things were kind of variable enough in myself that I didn't think that was going to be a big deal. And also that I just thought it's not worth throwing it away over the chance that we should really, like, figure that out. And if it is really incompatible, well, then that's the case. But let's actually figure it out, not just, oh, this might be the case, so we have to break up. So, yeah, that was an interesting night that night, but we got through that one, obviously. But, yeah. No, so when my recording was paused, he just came up and he said, and I was just looking at him because I've been, telling our story, and he just came and looked at me. He said, do you know that you're the most beautiful lady that I know? And just, look at him and smile, and I just love him so much, and I just feel so lucky every day that I get to be with him, even though he can be really, really annoying. I've had to learn to be very annoying, because if you're annoying someone else, it's harder to get annoyed. But to me, that's just part of his personality and part of our relationship, and I just think it's great. So that is the story of our beginning, not our whole story. That would take a long, long time. But I can continue our story at some point if you want to hear the next phase. But yeah, so that's how we got together. I'll end with one little anecdote. So the day that we got married, or maybe the day after, we were up, we stayed at this hotel. It had this like triangle room, and we stayed up on the top, no, we didn't stay on the top floor. Anyway, we stayed on that, and up on the top floor was a pool and a hot tub. So we went up to the hot tub, and there was this guy in the hot tub, and, he just kind of started chatting to us, and we told him we got married, the day before or whatever. And then we told him we'd only met in person a few weeks before, and he's like, whoa, he was pretty taken aback. And then he said, well, but when you know, you know. And I agree with that. When I knew, I knew. When my love knew, he knew. And we're together, and it's been the best decision I've made in my life. So, happy anniversary to me and my love, and thank you for letting me share my story with you, my tinklings. And I know, and I guess I just want everybody to know, I know how lucky I am. I've been probably not the worst relationship there could be, but pretty close. So I've been in the other end of the spectrum, and I know and appreciate as often as I can how amazing it is to be in this relationship. And I just hope it's not too good to be true. I really want to live together with my love until we're 100. So that's my hope. That's my dream. Or forever, depending on what sort of medical advances we have. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for being interested in my story and me and my love story.